Hey everybody, Greg Pruitt here with the Idaho Dispatch. It is June 23rd, 2022. This is episode 4 of the Dispatch, our new show that we have to kind of bring you guys some exclusive content, some new content where we're going to talk about new stories and old stories that are happening. And then we're also going to do some interviews, and that's what we are going to be doing today. So before I bring on our guest for the day, please be sure to subscribe to the Idaho Dispatch, idahodispatch.com/subscribe. And we also want to thank our advertisers, Alex Kincaid Law, the Carl Felt Center, Prestige Property Management, and North End Real Estate. We appreciate all of our advertisers and subscribers. You guys are the only reasons that we are able to do what we are doing. So with that, I am going to be bringing in Sara Brady, who I guess, for lack of a better term, is known as the Meridian Park Mom. And so for a lot of people that don't know, we're going to have to kind of go back in the vault here and explain a little bit about the situation that happened during COVID. And so why don't we start with that and kind of tell people a little bit about yourself and then kind of what led up to and happened in the park on that day.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So my name's Sara Brady, and I've lived in Idaho my whole life. And I'm married to a police officer of 20 years, and we have 4 children. And in April of 2020, I went to a play date. And when I arrived there, I'd been there a few minutes, 3 officers showed up. And they started telling people to leave the playground area. And I should note that they had wrapped up the playground equipment with yellow caution tape. Just the equipment, though, not anywhere else because the parks were actually open. And someone had ripped off the caution tape before I arrived. I don't know who it was, but it was already off, and there was a lot of kids playing. And so these officers were telling people to leave the playground area. And me and some other moms were questioning the officers. So we were asking things like, why is the playground closed when we can go to Walmart? There's dog parks open. There's, kids over here playing basketball. They're all sweaty. That's okay. The picnic tables are open. So we were just, questioning, we're asking, we pay taxes. Who can we redress for this issue? Because we don't want the playgrounds to be closed. We, for our kids' mental health, we want the playgrounds to be opened. Anyway, and at some point, this officer pointed at me, and I wasn't standing in an area that had been closed previously or currently. And he looked at me and said, "I'm giving you 5 seconds to leave." And I just was so offended. He starts counting down to me, and I was so offended. I just was like, "Fine, arrest me, do it." And I turned around, and he arrested me, and they took me to the Ada County Jail, where they had already let out 400 inmates due to COVID. And they booked me in. I paid a $300 bond. And I was charged, initially they actually charged me with trespassing injury to property because they were trying to link me to ripping off the tape, which I think they went back and watched the videotape and realized I didn't have anything to do with it. So they changed that charge to trespassing failure to depart. And that was picked up by the current Attorney General of Idaho.
Okay, Lawrence Wasden.
Lawrence Wasden.
Okay, so you brought something up that I actually didn't know from that situation. So originally you said the charge was trespassing injury to property, and you said that they watched a video. Was there video of that playground that they were able to review?
There is video of that. Yeah, of that playground. There's a couple different cameras.
Okay.
And it apparently, I've seen pictures of it. There's it looked like a couple moms. I don't know who it was still to this day, but it wasn't me.
Okay, because you said that it was taken down prior to your arrival at the park.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and the trespassing charge, the penalty on that is up to 6 months in jail and up to $1,000 fine.
Okay, and so do you remember the exact date of this incident?
April 21st of 2020.
Okay, so it's been 2 years and a few months.
Right, over 2 years.
It happened, and you still haven't had your trial up to this point.
That's correct. So after I was arrested and bonded out, I had my arraignment, which I believe was in July. I hired my first lawyer, and due to issues like at that time, they had started requiring masks in court. So I had some witnesses that said they didn't want to be my witness if they had to wear a mask. So that caused some issues with that lawyer. That lawyer actually ended up firing me. And then I got a second lawyer. Trial was set for February of 21. And then
Okay.
a few weeks later, it was actually suspended due to COVID. And then that second lawyer had a mini stroke. And
Oh,
so I had to then get a third lawyer. And then that third lawyer, trial was set for the second trial. Finally, court was opened up. Trial was set for August of 21. And a week and a half before trial was set to kick off. So I'd spent a lot of money up until that point doing pre-trial conferences, getting witnesses set up. And so $18,000 at that point for everything that had happened prior. And this lawyer called me and said, I'm so sorry, they've suspended trials again. And come to find out, it was in Ada County, because that's where my case is at, out of 100,000 people. And I can't remember if it's 20 or 25, but if it's 25 people, if they tested positive or even a probable case, juries would be suspended in Idaho. So if, your
okay.
kid might have the sniffles or grandma thinks she might have COVID, I didn't get a trial. And so at that point, I told the judge, I said, I can't financially afford to keep a lawyer on the docket while we wait for trials to be unsuspended again. Because the last time I had done that, I came to this realization that the judge was getting paid, the prosecutor is getting paid, my lawyer is getting paid. I'm pouring money down a hole, and everyone's just sitting there talking about how trials are suspended. And so by this second time it was suspended, I said, I do not want to let my lawyer go, but you guys have forced me to make a decision that's best financially for my family, even though I'm not going to be able to defend myself as well, but I'm going to let her go. I'm going to be pro se. And I actually think trials were suspended. I want to say it was August until February. So what is that, 5, 6 months, 7 months?
Yeah.
And then in January, they ordered mediation for my case. And we spent, I think it was 1 or 2 hours. It was a long time. But at the end of that, the state of Idaho actually offered me a plea deal. And the deal was I had to plead guilty to an infraction, and it would be only $50. And I told the judge, I said, I'm really conflicted about this because the process has become the punishment. I actually really want to go to trial. And I go, even to this day, if I said, please set a trial date, you guys still can't set a trial date for me. And so I go, how much more blood can you squeeze out of me? I go, I want a trial. I want a trial. And, so I let him know that I wouldn't be taking it. And, honestly, I didn't do anything wrong that day. I was never standing in a closed off portion of that open park. And my innocence isn't for sale, and for sure not for a measly $50.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, what would you say, to folks who are going to be watching this and they're going to say, okay, we get it. You didn't want to plead to the misdemeanor, given the seriousness of that issue of potentially going to jail for 6 months and the fine. But they were willing to compromise and just do an infraction to where it's not going to be, a criminal penalty at that point. It's a speeding ticket, right? Why not just take that, even though you didn't do anything wrong, but it's not going to count against your record at this point. So why not just do that
Right.
and get it over with and not have to worry about more costs in legal fees?
Right. Well, I think at the end of the day, the question comes down to, at what point, if you're charged with a crime and you're innocent and the government's dragging you through for years, because I'm in years now, at what point do you say no? And anyone can choose what they want. If you want to plead guilty and compromise, maybe you don't have principles on that, and compromise your innocence, and you say that you are guilty even when you're not guilty. But for me, I look at the sacrifices our founders made, and I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. And I honestly feel like I've become a political example of what not to do. Here's what we're going to do to you if you, take your kids to a playground during COVID. And in this case, I'm not actually guilty of an infraction either. So why should I have to pay? I mean, if you get pulled over and they say you're going 50 in a 20, but you were only going 10, do you still want to pay the ticket? Maybe some people do because they just simply want to get it over with. But for me, we've gone this far. I feel like it would be, such a letdown to say, okay, well, fine. I can't handle the stress I'll just pay the $50. Because at this point, I'm now $24,000 in now with my 4th set of lawyers. So, I mean, we're going to go the distance. Either you're going to dismiss the case, you're going to either find me not guilty or find me guilty, but something needs to happen.
Okay. And that was kind of my, you talked about being either guilty or not guilty when it goes to trial, unless the state decides to drop the case prior to then. What, what do you say to those who might be also, I guess, saying you're really rolling the dice, right? Not that a misdemeanor, trespassing is going to be severely damaging to your reputation or anything necessarily, but if it goes to a trial and a jury is listening to this whole case and they're talking about it, do you think possibly that when you said, when, like you mentioned, you got frustrated with the police officer and you're like, fine, just arrest me, then you turn around and he arrests you, do you think the jury might look at that and go, well, you asked for it, so you got it, rather than looking maybe at the merits of whether or not you were really trespassing or not?
Sure. I mean, it's Ada County, one of the most liberal counties in Idaho, for sure. I'm rolling the dice when it comes to that, but I would rather roll the dice and know what the end result is, because at the end of the day, that's better than me deciding that I'm going to plead guilty to something. And then we can have, because it's 6 jurors, right? 6 jurors for a misdemeanor. It's 12 for a felony. I'd rather have 6 jurors tell me that I'm guilty than just hand over my innocence like that.
Yeah. Okay. So, do your current attorneys, and how do you feel, like, based on the case that you have put together, when it goes to trial, how do you guys feel it's going to go to trial?
Yeah, so currently right now we've actually not started preparing for trial because there's no trial date set.
Yeah.
The next date that's set is it's a motion to dismiss. It's July 26th at 2:30 p.m. at Ada County Courthouse, and the public's welcome. But currently there is I think it's a 66-page motion to dismiss, and there's a lot of information there, and that's actually public record, which you can pull. And if someone wants to email me at contact Sara Brady at Gmail, I will email it to them. But there's a lot that's in there. And actually my lawyers had to file permission to have more than 25 pages in a motion to dismiss. And the state of Idaho came back and actually said no, that they didn't want there to be more than 25. And my lawyers came back and said, well, it's not Ms. Brady's fault that there's so many constitutional issues with her case. So July 26th is going to be a really big day for me. I've only seen my judge one time in person, and that was a couple weeks ago to set this motion to dismiss date. But this for sure is going to be the biggest date. If it does go to trial, it'll be the second biggest date. But as of now, it'll be the biggest date. And I'm honestly really positive this set of lawyers I've been very, very happy with. And, if it doesn't get dismissed on the 26th, then we will be going to trial. I'm not going to be pleading guilty.
Okay. Why do you think given how long ago this case was, given that it was over a playground area, why is the state just not dismissed it, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think one of the reasons is, they probably look at it that the state of Idaho was made to look like an embarrassment because I stood up to something and then I was arrested for it. There could be that. I think it's been so long too. Like, I think there's a little bit of pride there where they don't want to admit that they made a mistake. I think a third thing could be too that I've made some political attacks on Lawrence Wasden, he's the Attorney General of Idaho. It's his office that's prosecuting my case. Back in August of 2020, he actually was at a Canyon County Republican, I think it was a Central Committee meeting, I'm not sure, but where he was in a park after dark. And as we know in Idaho, parks are closed after dark. And I had pointed out, I was like, why does the Attorney General get to be in a closed park after dark? It seems like a rules for me, rules for thee, not for me sort of thing. So I think that's part of it. I think he's honestly not too thrilled with the way I've interacted with him, at least on social media. And I honestly think at this point, just let the case go, dismiss it. And how many thousands of dollars had they spent to prosecute a misdemeanor case on a mom with 4 children married to a police officer? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not a criminal. There's got to be some rapists out there, some murderers, there's got to be something out there, right? Something out there that's more important than this. But, if we're going to allocate resources to that, and, if you're going to make such a political example of me, what does it say for the next, good upstanding citizen? Sure, we all get sassy sometimes, but at the end of the day, I didn't actually do anything wrong.
Okay. What what are your thoughts on, and I've been asked this question by a few folks, and so I wanted to talk to you about it. Let's say we get to July 26th and your case is not dismissed, and at some point there's a trial, right? We don't know how long
Hopefully.
it will be after that.
Hopefully.
You assume there will be a trial at some point. Have you talked to the incoming attorney general? Assuming Raul Labrador is going to win, he does have a Democrat opponent. Typically, Republicans have taken statewide races. So let's assume for a minute that Raul Labrador wins in November. Do you think he would dismiss it? If you asked him if he would dismiss it,
I haven't asked him. Nope, I haven't asked him. I think that there's a higher chance that he would dismiss it than Attorney General Lawrence Wasden. To me, Raul seems like someone who's a little bit more level-headed. I think he'd also look at the case and say, oh, we see here that Ms. Brady was not even standing in an area when she was counted down by law enforcement and told to leave. I think that they would look at that and say, they kind of aggravated her first. You've been locked in a house with your kids for 6 weeks, one of them special needs. I think they'd look at it and say, you know what, this isn't the Idaho that we want to live in. But that's, again, I'm only speaking for myself and my impression of who he is. I could be totally wrong. But honestly, the thing is if we go into another COVID shutdown, which it looks like we might be, because they're starting to talk about cases and how they're ramping up again, my case might get shut down again. And come January, right? I don't know exactly what day that he's sworn in, but come January, there might be a possibility that goes before him, and that could actually be something that ends up happening.
Okay. What's the other, I guess, potential risk, and I'm not a lawyer, so full disclosure, I don't know if this is technically accurate. Is there also an additional risk because you're going to go all the way, so to speak, unless it gets dismissed in a month or so? Are you on the hook for the attorney's fees that the state has spent so far in doing that?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
But my understanding is, though, if I was to sign up for a public defender, which I was offered a couple of times by my judge when I had to fire my third lawyer, is my understanding is if you are found guilty, you may have to pay those fees back, which was something that I did not realize. So.
Okay. So at no point, I'm going to kind of jump back to the day that this incident happened. You or your kids did not get on the playground equipment. It was just you in the bark.
So my kids were on some playground equipment before the officers arrived. When they got there, I asked them to step off of the equipment and stand over by the grass. Okay. And I never touched equipment, but I did go where the equipment was because that's where the officers were to start. I was redressing my grievances with them.
Okay. And so, I guess in closing from questions on this side, what do you say to those who say, the police officers were just trying to do their job and you were being mean to the police officers, you're anti-cop or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I think that can't be further from the truth. I've been married to a police officer now for 22 years. He's been an officer for 20 years. I love law enforcement. And I think during COVID and other times too, law enforcement officers have been put in really tricky situations. And in that case, I don't know what that officer was going through. Maybe he was irritable too. I mean, COVID was a difficult time for a lot of people. We know the repercussions of that shutdown. So I don't know if we'll fully actually ever know the full repercussions of that, but I can have some empathy for that officer in that moment and realize, we both were kind of having a rough day there. He's getting kind of snappy with me, but at the end of the day, it's okay to disobey a law enforcement's order if it's not right. If it's unlawful, it's okay. You look at, and I'm not Rosa Parks, but I'm going to say a situation is Rosa Parks where she sat on a bus. It's a principle. It was okay for her because there might have been a law, but that doesn't mean that it was a moral law. In my case, it didn't have anything to do with the law because I just simply was not in an illegal area of that park. The thing is, civil disobedience, there's nothing wrong with it. As a wife of a police officer, it's an okay thing to do. I didn't swear at him. I didn't act aggressively. I was a little bit sassy, but I'd also just been counted down to by another adult at a playground. The only time that really happens in our family is when I'm telling my kids to get into the car and they're not listening. So I felt like it was a disrespectful thing that he had done. And I just was kind of like, I'm exasperated, like, fine, arrest me. And I probably should have said, well, fine, arrest me for not doing anything wrong. But in that moment, I just was like, fine, arrest me, do it, because I was just kind of like, well, I don't know why you would be counting down to me in this moment, but he did, and he did arrest me, and and he didn't let me go later, even when taking me to the car. And so I think there was a moment and I didn't mention this earlier, but after I was taken to the car, there was tape put back up on that equipment, and a gaggle of moms and kids took it back down. There was no enforcement action taken on them while I'm sitting in the car or being driven to the police station. So explain to me why it was just so important to close that place down. I'm now dealing with a situation 2 years later, and nobody else, even though they did some blatant things, disrespectful by ripping the tape off. So I know everyone has their own opinion about. That's where I stand with it. Civil disobedience. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
Okay. Well, is there any, I guess, closing message for the people of Idaho that you want to get out prior to your date on July 26th?
Yeah, anyone that lives in this area, I would love to see people come to this hearing. It's open to the public. It's July 26th at 2:30 p.m. Come a little bit early. The courtrooms are not super big, but I mean, I would really love to have some support in person. And
Okay.
thank you to all of my supporters out there.
Awesome. Well, Sara, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming on, and we'll continue to kind of update Idahoans as this case continues to progress.
Thank you, Greg.
All right. Take care. All right, everybody. That was Sara Brady, known, I guess, as the Meridian Park Mom, and she's got her next date on July 26th. We appreciate her coming on and giving you guys the opportunity to ask some questions in the discussion, and she can jump on and answer those if she wants to. I did want to do a disclosure. I was typically try to do it at the beginning. I'll do it at the end. I do know Sara. I've known Sara for a long time. She's a friend of mine. I did actually oppose them arresting her back in the day, so you'll be able to find that information. It's all out there. But for the sake of the interview, I wanted to do my best to be objective and just ask the questions that other Idahoans I know have been asking about this case. So with that, I appreciate all of you tuning in. Enjoy, and God bless.